Welcome to It Starts With You, where we cut through the noise and get real about the behaviours that shape our lives, both personally and professionally. I'm Vic O'Farrell. Let's jump in because behaviours start with you. So, hello, welcome, and a happy new year to all of our listeners and viewers. This is the first episode of 2026. Hope you have had a peaceful, festive break. Now, today I am joined by the wonderful Nancy, who I met towards the end of last year, and we have had some fascinating conversations. And this is going to be half an hour discovering and talking about our behaviours during the M season. Yes, menopause. Men, please do not switch off. You could learn so much because Nancy is a wealth of information. Rather than me introduce you, Nancy, would you like to let everybody know who you are, what you do for the world?
Well, hello, Vicky. I'm delighted to be speaking on your podcast. I can see you're called QB, Queen Bee, or Queen of Behavior. Yes, we've met last year. Well, literally about 3 weeks ago, towards the tail end of 2024. And yes, let's start 2026 with a fresh vision about hormones and deeper insight about how your hormonal transition in the perimenopause that can last a decade of a lady's life, and transition into the menopause, which is permanent once the ovaries sign over and out. So it all starts because as women, we are born with 2 million eggs, and every month throughout your life, we would shed those eggs until you reach about the menopause or perimenopause, and they're down to literally 1,000 with virtually zero estrogen output, so, which leaves us in a negative reserve of estrogen because not only we do have the ovaries outputting estrogen, we have receptors all over our body, bladder, muscles, gut, but also our brain, the hypothalamus. So without that estrogen hit, things start going pear-shaped.
Yeah, I always say it's like the wheels start to fall off, don't they? So just to add into context here as well, because if you're listening, you might not realise, but Nancy is Dr. Nancy Allen. She is a GP and a specialist in women's healthcare, isn't it?
Yes, I've been a GP for 25 years. That makes me sound quite geriatric, but no, 25 years. And I'm in my 50s. I'm a mother, a grandparent myself as well. And I've experienced premature menopause quite early. My kids were in primary school, and I went through a hell of a roller coaster ride in the perimenopause, in the time where everybody was anti-HRT because there was this connotation back in everybody's brains that it causes breast cancer. And even I was scared to start HRT, and I tried everything under the moon, but I just couldn't hack it. It was the brain fog, the fatigue, muscle aches, joint aches, and I thought, I can't do this. I've just got to, sort it all out. And here I am. So, to share my own experience and my knowledge, I'm a member of the British Menopause Society, the European Menopause Society, and the International Menopause Society. When I go to these international conferences, it's fascinating how people do things differently, and but also all these, world-renowned specialists. At the forefront is women's healthcare, and we do things differently in the UK, and there's always a reason behind it and a rationale. But it's just fascinating to get different angles and aspects of the international care for menopause.
Mm. So let's talk about, I mean, and as you know, and listeners, and I think I've probably mentioned it on a podcast, but if you have missed it, I am in my 50s and I'm 6 years post-menopause, and I celebrate the fact. And I say to women who are going through the hell, there's life on the other side and you aren't alone, and it is a wonderful place to be on this side of menopause. But let's take our basic things of behaviours, because I know my behaviours were atrocious. I felt, in a way, I felt a bit bipolar because I felt like I was either up here or I literally was so low. I didn't even want to live. I would just be crying and just like not wanting to be anywhere. So what hormone is it that's making us go from one extreme to another?
Well, that's a lovely way of describing it. Bipolar. That's quite novel to me, but it's quite refreshing to hear that description. And I'd match the physiology behind that. So your ovaries, they output estrogen, and obviously progesterone later on after ovulation. Now, whereas if you compare that to a man, they just have one hormone, testosterone, and it's a level output throughout the month, day and night, 24/7. They've just got an even keel of testosterone. With women, and particularly as the ovarian output declines, it's like a wave, a tidal wave. You get good days and bad days, up and down, and your brain just can't cope. All of a sudden, the receptors are thinking, where's that estrogen? And then you develop anxiety. And then on top of that, there's no progesterone, there's low progesterone. Progesterone helps you sleep. So, how can you function in your early 40s when you've got to go to work and you're waking up at like early hours of the morning and it's still dark? You've got to prep things for school, get ready for work, deliver 110%, do the shopping, make sure everything's on point, and you've only had about 3 hours sleep. Just yesterday, in one of my consultations, I had a lady, she was only getting 3 hours of sleep for the
Mm.
past, 6 months, and she was on her knees. She was quite unique because she had endometriosis and she had to have surgery, and she was very concerned about going back on HRT, but at the same time, she knew if she just could not function with 3 hours sleep. So,
I don't think many people can function. I mean, I'm not the best sleeper in the world, but I know if I have one night of 3 hours sleep, then I can get through it. But if I was constantly having that, I would be absolutely floored because we repair, don't we? Our bodies repair during sleep.
yes, your cognitive function declines with lack of sleep. So, how can you process things without sleep? Your brain needs to shut down and actually rest to recover and wake up refreshed and be able to execute high level cognitive function. So without that sleep, it's just you're just piling on layers of sleep deprivation, which affects everything across the board, your mood, your exercise level, your motivation, anger is a very common one. So layer on top of that the low hormone levels, lack of sleep, and you just leave me alone. I just don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to sleep. And you try and sleep, but you can't because your bladder's waking you up. You have to go to the toilet 3 or 4 times a night. There's estrogen receptors in your bladder, and then try and go back to sleep after you've gone to the toilet. How does that work? It's so hard. And this is something all of my patients have to handle and negotiate every single day and try and put a label on that and call it normal. And it's even harder in the perimenopause because they're still having relatively regular cycles. And they
Mm.
don't actually understand why they're gaining weight and why their mood is affected and why everybody's looking at them and going kind of weird and quiet when they come down in the morning. Why you just hot flushes and you look like a mess and your skin is suddenly not as glowing, as radiant as it used to be. Um, it's very, very, it's hard. Motivation declines. One of the things I always ask, I give my ladies, my patients a questionnaire, and it has 87 symptoms. And one of the I group them in sections. In the cognitive section, I always ask them how their productivity at work is. And invariably, they have a scale of like 1 to 3. That section, even before the sort of hot flushes, is always a 3.
Mm.
And that's what brings them in. The irritability, anger, and unfortunately, it tends to be directed at your loved ones. When you've just sat at work all day, nodding and smiling, yes,
Yeah.
I'll do this, yes, I'll do that. You come home and that's it, don't talk to me, you know.
Yeah. So just thinking there, where you say our sleep and that, maybe only getting 3 hours of sleep a night. So how can you help, explain to me, but also to our listeners, because they may also be getting it. If I'm working from home and I'm alone all day, I could get to about 2:30 in the afternoon. And trust me, I could go and have a nap on the sofa and I could literally just fall asleep. So I can go to bed at night time. Yeah, and I've done the not drinking, a couple of hours before bed and not looking at my phone, and I've done all of this great routine. And yet, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm looking at the ceiling going, wide awake. Yet, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I could so easily just go straight to sleep.
Can I ask you a question, Vicky? This is
Yes.
me being the doctor again. Why do you fight it? Why don't you just have a power nap?
Oh no, I do sometimes, but I'm like, but why can I literally just go, oh, do you know what? And I just go in the other room and literally lie on the sofa, and it will only be for half an hour. But I'm thinking I could literally fall asleep, but why can't I do that at 2 o'clock in the morning? Why am I wide awake?
Well, it again. I mean, I don't know what your hormones levels are, what type of HRT you're on, etc. Not everybody can have HRT,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of factors behind that. How much exercise you've done, how much work you've done. Have you had consistent sleep every night the night before? Is it just a catch up? I do know you travel a lot, you deliver a lot. Your work is very intense, so there's a lot of factors related to that. But even 20-year-olds sometimes do have slumps in the afternoon as well when they feel, oh, I need to sleep. How much coffee you have. But let's say you're not on HRT and you're in that period where your estrogen's declining, you're not ovulating, you've got low progesterone levels. Progesterone actually has a calming effect on your brain, and it's all catch up. So you do actually need that time to just give yourself a break. And I would say if you have the luxury of affording a power nap in the afternoon, then yeah, go for it. And I'd certainly embrace it. And I always say to people, work with your body. If you can have that, then encourage everybody to support you. And okay, I'm just going out for a nap or a chill or just a quiet 20-minute, yeah, whether it's a nap or just doing nothing or just listening to relaxing music or meditating, whatever you need to do just to quieten your brain. Because even in the Victorian era, by by the time you're 50, you're literally, I mean,
Yes.
in Victorian times, the average life expectancy was late 40s because of loads of women died in
Yeah.
childbirth. And by the time they get the menopause, they were looking at that was it. That was the average life expectancy. It was quite common. But now we're living longer, and in our 50s, we're still running businesses, working, managing households, looking after parents. Things haven't stopped, and you're still expected to deliver. And you also have a responsibility of supporting the household financially. Whereas in those days, it used to be traditionally the man's role to just do that, and you're at home doing the housekeeping and doing the homely stuff. But now women have an extended role.
Let's hit pause for a second so I can tell you how I work with leaders and teams to turn behaviour into results. If your team's stuck in the same old patterns, it's not just a skill gap, it's a behaviours gap. My multitude of workshops break those patterns and build stronger, more productive teams. It starts with you, and together we'll make it happen.
So,
Yeah. I mean, back then in Victorian times, we didn't have all the luxuries that we have today of washing machines and all this kind of stuff, and fridges and freezers and that kind of thing. But and like you say, 100 years ago, the average life expectancy of a woman was 50. So women just went a bit mad before they died. Is really what happened, wasn't it? That's all they thought.
yeah.
And yet now it's not. And a woman born today is expected to live till 100, and yet menopause is was it average of 51, I think, for the
Yes.
actual year of menopause.
Yes.
So what can we and there's so many people talking about it now, which is amazing because it really is a subject that we can talk about. But it's about understanding that our behaviors change. And trust me, I love a little nap in the afternoon. I've never the thing is, when if I'm out delivering a workshop, I don't actually ever feel like I need a nap. It's only when I'm at home,
You
and maybe it's
crash.
just my brain catching up with me. But it's about, like you say, embracing the fact that know that your behaviors will change through menopause and to be able to talk about it, because I feel that some people just feel they just need to bottle it all up and deal with it themselves and not
So
let go.
yes, and it fascinates me that a lot of ladies actually are somehow ashamed of coming in and talking about it. And I encourage them, to do the questionnaire before they come and see me. And some ladies would share the questionnaire or the partners find it. And I say, I didn't know. Why don't you tell me you're going through all of this? And they just look blank at their partners or husbands and say, well, I don't know. I just did. And is it because we're women and we just learn to cope with things? I haven't got the answer for that. And we don't know why women do that. But layer on that, on top of that, a lot of women who've had, I don't know, antenatal or postnatal depression or traumatic um, experiences in life, they tend to have even worse experiences, and they're the women who find it more difficult to actually speak up about it.
Hmm.
Even women now, another common theme that's coming out, and people are more aware of it, is neurodiversity. When I say that, ADHD, for example, um, a lot of women learn to cope, but if you speak to a person who's had a recent diagnosis, a lot of my ladies get diagnosed when they come to me in their late 40s and 50s with ADHD, which they never realized that they had. But they'll look at me and they'll realize, do you know, I've actually put all my symptoms on Google and it makes sense. And, you can just see a light bulb just switch on in their brain and realize, oh my word, that's why. And it just makes sense. And,
Mm.
and you look back at the behaviors, but we're just trained or sort of we just learn to cope. Whether it's a young girl, the age of 12, having a period every month. If you think of it, it's quite an event. It's quite shocking to actually start having monthlies and trying to cope with that, to normalizing that as being part of normality. And yet there's no education about what happens at the tail end when this all stops and your body transitions into a different phase of life as well. There's very little education out there. And it would be fantastic if anybody's in the educational curriculum in schools, they could start teaching children about what to expect during that transition as well, not just about reproduction and safe sex and sexually transmitted diseases and etc., but also about the physiological changes that happen in women, in their mothers and grandparents, and how children can actually understand and be supportive towards that.
Yeah, and I do that. As you know, I've done a little kind of stand-up routine on it, and I talk about the fact that when we come into that beginning part, the periods, we have all the support network around us. We have mothers and friends and aunts and big sisters and teachers, all of that. But actually, when we are at this stage of our life, quite often parents are elderly if they are still around. We're not at school with teachers, but yet we've got the young children looking at us for support. And it's like we're that person in the middle that's got to hold it all together. But yet, I'm now 6 years post menopause and I am on HRT. And I feel that my behaviours now I've got through it, and I don't know whether it is an HRT thing or have my hormones in my body just balanced because I feel like I've got a real lovely level playing field again. Yes, I get stressed by things. It's life, isn't it? Especially running your own business. But yeah, I feel that that I think we describe it as the tsunami. It's just all over the place, and yet I've plateaued again. Is that because I'm on HRT or?
Well, it's lovely that you shared that, and that's sort of a beacon of light to any lady going through the perimenopause, and understanding that if she's eligible, obviously not one size, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I can actually echo that because I feel exactly the same. And like you said, it is a really good season in life where you've come to have increased confidence and acceptance of your physiology. I mean, I must say, one of the reasons why a lot of women come to me and they're almost ashamed is because they've kind of lost their fertility, their ability to have children. A lot of women really struggle coping with that. But once you realize, well, this is part of life, and this is me, and you come to that, and you're able to have your hormones balanced and checked. You do come to a place of acceptance and equilibrium, and you start shining and glowing as you are, QB. I'll call you that.
Oh, I know, but and that's the thing. I do feel like in a really good place in my life, and going to the gym because I know that, when you've gone through menopause, osteoporosis, osteopenia is quite prevalent because we start losing bone density, don't we, without the hormones in our body. And it's actually about making sure that my body is strong enough so that when I am in old age, I'm only middle age, but when I get into my 80s, if I have a fall, I don't want to be breaking bones because you do tend to find that old people fall, and so, quite often it's the fall that ends up taking them away from this world.
It does. The mortality of a fall is about 20% of people who do have a fall. It can actually be within 30 days. That's the figure for mortality, which is quite shocking. And one of the reasons for that is loss of balance and fragility, sadly. Um, doesn't, I mean, it's quite a cultural shift, which clearly you've made that as well, Vicky. You've ingrained it into your lifestyle that you must exercise and build muscle. And the reason being the traction of the muscle on the bone, whether, if you're even toning, Pilates, lifting, obviously the heavier weights you're able to lift, the more traction on the muscle, and that stimulates bone growth and that reduces the risk of osteopenia and osteoporosis. And also, there's also other lifestyle factors. One of the commonest ones is increasing alcohol intake. That's a one that isn't medical. I always ask about that as well. And a lot of people come to terrified of the risk of cancer. And I'll say to them, well, let's have a look here. And there's a graph that I share with them. How much alcohol do you take a week? Now, and how much do you smoke? And how many hours of exercise would you take a week? This will probably alarm you, but I had a consultation with a lady going through the perimenopause, and she was having 63 units of alcohol a week. And she was finding that wine was her go-to when she'd work all day. She comes home, she likes to cook with a glass of wine. So we worked it all out, and I said to her, if anything's going to predispose you to a higher risk of cancer, it's this wine. It's this amount of alcohol. I mean, if you can reduce it within our limits, for women, we metabolize it less as men do, and that does increase the risk as well. And I understand where she's coming from. That's what relaxes her. But she's come to the doctor, she sought medical attention, and we're working on it. We're reversing that. She understands now the science behind why, and we're getting her hormones optimized. So it's very important to look at everything holistically, not just,
Mm.
you know, the HRT. There's other risk factors to optimize your health, but exercise is fantastic. You do that every week.
I do, yes, I do. Um, I'm just picking up there on the alcohol one because I think, there's lots of people that have chosen the life of sobriety. I haven't, I'll be honest with you.
Yep.
My tipple is a gin and soda. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Now, I probably drink more than I should. There'll be some weeks where I don't hardly touch any of it because I'm so busy and I'm here, there, and everywhere. But then there are other times when it's been very stressful, and yes, I will have a gin while I'm cooking dinner. But you talk about wine there. Now, I love a glass of wine. I love a glass of champagne. But post menopause, it really impacts me differently. Like I could have a glass of wine and feel like I've had a bottle, and
Yes.
the next day is awful. Yeah, not with a gin, but it's only been post menopause. What's gone on with my body then? Because I know there's a lot of women that I know that have all said the same thing. Like post menopause, wine it affects me differently.
That's interesting. I find your tolerance generally decreases during the menopause, but the exact why, I don't know. I'd have to do a bit of digging as to the link of why your tolerance for alcohol is less in the post-menopause. I don't know. I'll get back to you on that one. Perhaps we'll do a follow-up Q&A and find out why. But what I would say, Vicky, is definitely track the amount of alcohol you say, and as long as you're within your 14 units a week, you're good.
Mm.
You're reducing that, but obviously overall holistically, the less you have, the better, the lower your risk. It is associated with breast cancer and
Mm.
all cancers, generally speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know, I know, I probably should reduce the amount. It is. It's a habit, but let's not bore the listeners with my bad habits. Actually, listeners and viewers, if you have suddenly got questions, thinking, oh, if we've triggered questions, all of Nancy's contact details are going to be in the show notes. So please do reach out to us, or leave a comment on the video on YouTube, or on Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this, because it could be that you're thinking, I've got a question. I feel a bit silly asking it. The amount of questions that I get asked, and I think because I've educated myself on menopause, now 6 years post menopause, I can take the mickey out of myself and my journey to kind of educate others in a humorous way, because it's a serious subject, but let's bring a bit of humor into it and normalize it, because everyone's going to be impacted. Even you men, you will be impacted, not physically, but emotionally. We will drag you on that journey. But if you could leave our viewers and listeners with some advice on if they are either heading into it or in the middle of it and have it really, really struggling. You are an amazing GP for being a real advocate. When I went to the doctor, I was given evening primrose oil. So, what can you say to somebody who's perhaps struggling to find support somewhere, whether it's their local GP or just somewhere local? What can they do?
I think the most important thing is educate yourself about the symptoms of the menopause, or even just go. I'll share my questionnaire with you, the symptoms, and you can just track it, grade it from 0 to 3, and not only that, you just take that and give it to your doctor. So you don't even. I know you've got 10 minutes in the consultation with your doctor, and that's a big barrier. And associated with it, it's so difficult to verbalize the fact that you've had an argument with your husband for whatever, or people at work are just like not talking to you anymore, and you're impatient, or you're this, or you're that, or you're just not happy, you've lost that spark. Then track it, document it, and just take it to your GP or go to a menopause specialist, and seek help and advice from a professional person, rather than just go on social media and self-diagnose and try and go down a rabbit hole. But just embrace your feelings and just document it and track it, and just come and speak to us. We're here to help. That's what we do.
So tracking in terms of, oh, if I felt low mood today, high mood, low mood, or angry, or this or that, but also tracking what you eat and what you drink so that
Well,
it
I
can all.
think I think all of your symptoms, because like I'll share with you the menopause questionnaire, or the perimenopause questionnaire. It's just here. So, and if all your listeners want to sort of take the questionnaire, there's a copy. It's a PDF format. They can answer it online, and then you can approach your doctor with it. And it's
Mm,
actually almost as a form of self-diagnosis and realization, where you're looking in a mirror quite barefaced in the morning, in a magnifying glass, and it's, oh my God. And a lot of people don't actually realize, women don't realize, because you just get on with it and you're in repeat, and it's not like a light switch. Or like when you're younger, when you start your cycles, you wake up one day, you go, and there's blood there. It starts. That's the official start. But when you go through perimenopause, it's not like a light switch. It's so subtle, and you get these subtle changes. The best way to actually verbalize it, engage it, is to take the questionnaire, and it's just like a good bare look in the mirror of all of your symptoms, and you can quantify it and you can share it, and it's so easy to test. Now, another thing is that we don't test a hormone profile for your FSH or estrogen levels won't actually sort of dictate that you're in the perimenopause, because your hormones fluctuate, and we don't actually advocate doing that in the UK because of the fluctuation. So let's say you went to your doctor, they did a hormone panel for you, the perimenopause or menopause, and your hormones are normal, but you've got all these symptoms. What happens then? Did you just disappear into the ether for 5 years and then come back when you're on your knees? So we don't actually test your estrogen levels in the UK for that reason. We go on the symptoms.
mm.
So definitely, my advice is take the symptom questionnaire and come and talk to someone.
And thank you for sharing your symptoms questionnaire, which, ladies and gentlemen, will be in the show notes. And if you're a gentleman listening to this thinking, I know my wife's going through it, but she won't open up. But I'm determined to get her some support. Then you need to find a way to talk, and whether it's just maybe putting this podcast in front of them and getting them to listen. Oh, Dr. Nancy, it's been wonderful to talk to you. I love talking about the menopause just because it's a stage of a woman's life that we need to embrace. Because trust me, my thoughts I'm going to leave you with is life on the other side is just amazing.
I love it.
And what would you like to leave our listeners and viewers with on the menopause?
Just embrace it. And like Vicky said, life on the other side, once your hormones are optimized, is great. You know, if anything, you're more empowered, more positive. And like you, Vicky, I feel in better health than I've ever been my entire life.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure. And thank you for hosting me on your show.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Well, that's today's dose of truth. Now go make it happen because behaviour drives behaviour. And behaviour starts with you.